and welcome to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. My name is Omar Pinto, the host of the Shair podcast and a founding member of the SRC, the Shair Recovery Community. In the SRC, we have a number of live online recovery meetings every week on a number of different topics. This podcast is only one example of the content provided to our members. In this meeting, a chapter of the Tao Te Ching is discussed every week as to how it relates to recovery. I hope you enjoy this week's podcast episode.
Hey guys, Buddy C. This is the October 17th, 2019 Tao Te Ching meeting for the Shair Recovery Community. You can join us. It costs you $1 for a month. After that, it's $12 a month. That's what it costs to be in the SRC. It's a great online community. Lots of meetings. Lots of good recovery talk and postings and people. Just good stuff if you need to supplement your recovery. This is just one of the meetings we have. I'd like to welcome everyone today. Paul and Lala and Kate and Craig. There's a link in the notes if you're interested in the SRC. I've got that there for you. 63rd chapter. Hey, Tina, how are you today, ma'am?
Good morning. Good.
Good morning. We're doing something new. We are using the raise hand, which is under the managed participants. So if you've got something, just raise your hand, and that way we can get you in. Make sure we don't overlook you.
Oh.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay, good. And then I'll lower it after the conversation. So
good idea.
That's Craig's idea. You can thank Craig for that one. Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah. 63rd chapter. Really, for me, this is the essence of what this is all about. What I see in this chapter is the whole idea of this effortless effort, Wu Wei, and this is the whole reason I was ever interested in the Tao to begin with, is this chapter. Because I think the whole chapter is talking about how to practice effortless effort. Oh, I want to mention a new book I got, which I would suggest everyone get this book. This is actually the translation, the book that Wayne Dyer used to do his translations. He references this in the front of his book, and it's the Tao Te Ching, the definitive edition by Jonathan Starr. Jonathan Starr is the author, and what he does is he takes every word and then puts out every possible translation or many possible translations for that word. So you could go through and make your own translation, which is what Wayne Dyer did, I think, from reading his thing. So it's really interesting when you read the different ideas you can get from doing that. So it's really, I would suggest that. I got it for like $6 with shipping off of Amazon used. So, I mean, it's cheap to buy. There's a lot of old copies out there. So I would definitely recommend this. Kate, are you ready to read for us, ma'am?
I am.
All right. Have at it.
All right. 63rd verse. First translation. Practice non-action. Work without doing. Taste the tasteless. Magnify the small. Increase the few. Reward bitterness with care. See simplicity in the complicated. Achieve greatness in little things. In the universe, the difficult things are done as if they are easy. In the universe, great acts are made up of small deeds. The sage does not attempt anything very big, and thus achieved greatness. Easy promises make for little trust. Taking things lightly results in great difficulty. Because the sage always confronts difficulties, he never experiences them. Second translation, act without doing, work without effort. Think of the small as large and the few as many. Confront the difficult while it is still easy. Accomplish the great task by a series of small acts. The master never reaches for the great, thus she achieves greatness. When she runs into a difficulty, she stops and gives herself to it. She doesn't cling to her own comfort, thus problems are no problem for her. Third translation, act by not acting, do by not doing. Enjoy the plain and simple. Find that greatness in the small. Take care of difficult problems while they are still easy. Do easy things before they become too hard. Difficult problems are best solved while they are easy. Great projects are best started while they are small. The master never takes on more than she can handle, which means that she leaves nothing undone. When an affirmation is given too lightly, keep your eyes open for trouble ahead. When something seems too easy, difficulty is hiding in the details. The master expects great difficulty, so the task is always easier than planned. Therefore, even the sage treats some things as difficult. That is why in the end, no difficulties can get the better of him. Final translation, keep still, don't work so hard. Learn to appreciate everyday life. Pay attention to details. Start small and work your way up. When people give you trouble, let it slide. Break everything down to its essentials. Get the job done before it becomes a chore. With the right preparation, difficult tasks can be completed with ease. Every major project consists of small steps. The masters don't take on more than they can handle, which is why they can do just about anything. Don't promise more than you can deliver, and don't underestimate the task. You'll only make things harder for yourself. The masters are always aware of the difficulties involved, which is why they never have to deal with them.
Comments on this for me? I think this whole chapter is about learning how to do those first two sentences. And thinking about recovery, there's really two approaches I see to recovery. There's the God doing for me approach and the cognitive behavior approach. Now, they're mixed in some ways, but, me making a better buddy or me learning ways to, there's the naked mind, the whole idea of understanding alcoholism and all of the practices we can do to help us not drink when we want to drink. And then there's the idea that I surrender, that a higher power is involved in my recovery. And it's two different ideas, really, in a lot of regards. So, got it, Dave? Thanks. We'll talk about that some more, I think. But, Craig, you got something, sir?
Right, so I like the doing without doing. That's probably one of my favourites. The taste the tasteless, that kind of got me to start with. Because I was kind of wondering, how can you taste something that's tasteless? But then I thought about it, and we often talk about water and how water is the source of, it feeds everybody. It doesn't discriminate. So I think going back to a natural source, going back to a basic. Personally, I didn't really like water. I preferred beer. But at the moment, I'm really enjoying tasting the tasteless because it's something basic, it's nutritional, and it keeps me going. I think the main thing I got out of tasteless was going back to basic, just not overindulging, just living with what I have, not going for not what I don't deserve, but assessing whether it's a want or a need, and not overindulging. Just take what I have and as long as that's enough. And the doing the small things, that reminded me of Admiral McRaven's commencement speech at the University of Texas. He was talking about doing small things. And one of those small things was making your bed. I've actually got it, so just 2 seconds. What he said was, if you make your bed every morning, you'll have accomplished the first task of the day. It will give you a small sense of pride, and it will encourage you to do another task and another and another. By the end of the day, that one task completed will have turned into many tasks completed. Making your bed will also reinforce the fact that little things in life matter. If you can't do the little things right, you will never do the big things right. And if by chance you have a miserable day, you will come home to a bed that is made, that you made, and a made bed gives you encouragement that tomorrow will be better. If you want to change the world, start off by making your bed. So I think just by doing the small little things, it can accumulate. Rather than thinking about having one massive task to do, I know Buddy likes to use the how do you eat an elephant analogy. You do it in little pieces. You do it by bit by bit. And it's the same with if you've got too much going on in your head and you think you've got all these things to do, it's really good just to have a brain dump, get everything on a bit of paper and see all your priorities, and then just take care of the things as they come up. And 9 times out of 10, half the stuff that's on the list won't actually need done. It's just stuff that we think needs done. So turning a massive task into small little tasks has been instrumental for me, more particularly in my recovery. And it reminds me of a saying that I heard really early on. I can do anything, but I can't do everything. So I can do anything I choose to put my mind to, but I just can't do it all at the same time.
Thank you, Craig. How about this? See simplicity in the complicated.
Yeah. So again, just break things down. Just don't think of it as one massive goal. Just see it as simple tasks that you need to accomplish.
Eating the elephant?
Yeah.
A bite at a time?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I read Derek Lynn, and Derek Lynn takes this chapter, and most of it he's approaches it from a cognitive approach, that we take all these things, we divide them into small pieces so they're not hard for us to get accomplished. But in that, I'm really not seeing a lot of non-action. It's still action. Tina, you have something?
Yes. Yeah, I can see why you love this. This captivated me, the whole, all the transitions and everything. To me, it's like something I was thinking about yesterday with kids. They say when kids talk to you and they may seem like they're trivial things, still listen, because someday they're going to come to you with the big things and they're going to know you're there to listen. And to me, it's almost like you have to just treat, the things that my kids bring to me. I'm like, oh, okay, let's talk about that. I want it to be that easy, even if it's a really hard issue as they get older. And that's kind of the best way to approach it. And to me, I think a lot has to do with, we all have the answers in us. We just need to find them. Your first response, as long as you're training your mind right, your priorities are in line, you're in tune with Tao, you're doing all these things that are going to keep you in line, that really your answer will come out and it'll be simple. We overcomplicate things in our head by overthinking. And so that's what I got out of it, about just keeping the things simple by going with what we know to be true. But then our ego gets in the way and it starts, what if this, what if that, what about this person, when really we already know the answer.
That's good, Tina. Thanks. Paul, you have something, sir?
Yeah, just continuing what Craig and Tina were talking about. This chapter really spoke to me. I guess maybe think of the acronym KISS, keep it simple, stupid. I have to remind myself of that sometimes, especially at work. When I'm at work and I get on a new book project, it can seem very overwhelming at first if I think about all the work that needs to be done. But then when I just sit down and start doing it, and every day I see a little more progress, and I have to, my boss will get on my case, how's that coming along? And I'll just keep telling him, well, I made a little more progress the other day, and well, that's all you can do, and then he'll tell me that. So, and that just keeps me going. And eventually, it all gets done. It all gets done when it should. And I don't have to push it. When I start pushing it, I get frustrated, and that's when I run into problems. And then I actually start procrastinating, which is the worst thing I can do. So
it's amazing, isn't it, Paul? Isn't it amazing how when you do the opposite of what you really need to do, or what you think you need to do, when you start pushing, when you start resisting it, you pull back.
Yeah, that's it exactly. And I never knew what that was before. So now I have an idea. I'm still not perfect at it, and then it goes to the recovery too. I mean, there's the old cliche, one day at a time, and that I really took that to heart when I started my recovery, because I think once we first quit drinking, it can look very overwhelming. Like, I have to do all this work, and I don't really look at it as work, because first of all, I made that initial surrender, which was the key. Mm-hmm. I turned it over. I said, I can't do this, so I'm just going to stop doing what I was doing and try something different. But again, at first it can seem overwhelming. I think that's what leads to relapse, is people get so overwhelmed, and or they just start feeling a little like they've got it, like the ego gets involved, and you think you've got it all figured out. I mean, there's a reason that at over 10 years sober, there's a reason I still come to these meetings. There's a reason I still do my daily work on my recovery, is because it's a practice, like we always talk about. I'll never get this figured out, and I don't want to get this figured out, because I want to keep applying the tools, and it goes to all aspects of my life, not just my recovery, but like I said, my work. It's just, like you said, it's just trying not to push it, just try to let it flow naturally, and it's amazing how the stuff gets done.
I have Claire in my meetings, she says, go where you're being pushed.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's great. That is fantastic, because that really is it. Don't resist where you're being pushed. Just go there,
Yeah, go with the flow.
Go with the flow. Exactly. Lala, you have something, ma'am?
Yes. I really do. This really does make sense to me, what all you guys are saying too, as well as the translation. I remember I was in a meeting once in New York, and I didn't understand it so much then, because I don't think I understood recovery so much. But looking back now, he said, he went to his first AA meeting, and he wanted to do steps 1 through 12 right then and there. And I've always kind of laughed at that, because, I want, as, addicts and alcoholics, like we want it, and we want it now. And, when I first moved back home to Virginia to really get the bull by the horns, instead of this, get a little sobriety under my belt, relapse, get a little sobriety. I didn't realize that I was doing the work until I was here. And I've been here about a year and a couple months now. And right around the year mark, I had my therapist told me, look where you were a year ago. So it's like I wasn't understanding that each day I was doing a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, because I still have that mindset. I want to do it all at once or not at all, and all or nothing kind of thing. But when I look back to, where I was a year ago, it's night and day. I mean, it is night and day. My whole mindset, my whole world, everything's slowed down. Everything's more nuanced. It's not these huge extreme emotions one way or another, which is a huge part of my relapse, is not being able to sit in those emotions. Just eating part of that elephant day by day by day. And then also, not getting frustrated when you have a little bit of a step back, because you can take 10 steps forward and 2 steps back. And for me, it's the only way I can do it, because if I try and bite off the whole thing, I'm going to get overwhelmed, like Paul said, and fall down that mountain.
And steps back are not really steps back a lot of times, and that is life, isn't it? We have this back and forth. It happens all, Craig, and one thing you were talking about taste the tasteless, one of the other translations talks about that as enjoy the plain and simple. Think of the small as they've switched that. Learn to appreciate everyday life. That in tasting the tasteless, another way to translate that. So that makes it a little clearer for me. You got something?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Just jump to that, right? So just what Lala was talking about, the guy wanting to work the steps, just in the one go. I think that's kind of like saying, right, that's it, I'm never drinking again. I think you're over promising. So that's where I kind of tag that into the easy promises make for little trust. I don't know how many other people says I'm never drinking again. They told the partners I'm never drinking again. I'm never doing this again. I'm never doing that. And then before you know it, you're back at it. And then that trust's gone. I kind of relate this to one day at a time, keeping everything in the moment and just being able to do what's in front of you right now and just worry about the next thing when it comes up. More particularly when it comes to the part where it says little trust. Some of us can maybe stretch for 3-4 days without drinking, and then all of a sudden, everybody thinks you're doing fantastic. Then all of a sudden you're back to day one again, or you're back to square one, and you're just going back to the copious amounts that we were drinking beforehand, or using, or whatever was your pleasure. And then that trust's gone, and it's more difficult going back to somebody and say, right, that's it, this is it this time. And then before you know it, 4 or 5 times down the line, everybody's going to just assume that you're going to fail. And there's nothing worse than somebody in recovery than not having people that trust them, or people that have that faith in, or the confidence in somebody that, that you say to somebody, right, that's it, this is where I am. And people think, you know what, yeah, you've got past previous for this, so I'll give it a week. So I think you tend to lose support as well if you're over promising things. I always tend to under promise and over deliver on some of the stuff that I like to do. So yeah.
Thanks, Craig. Paul, you have something, sir?
Yeah, I was just going to kind of agree with what Craig was saying there about the. In this chapter, I see a lot of the living in the present moment, and really, when you think about it, that's all we really have. I mean, I know, especially when I first got sober, I look back on all the stuff that I did when I was drinking, and all the people that I hurt and all that kind of stuff. And you really can't dwell on that stuff, because, there's nothing constructive that can come out of that. You can make your amends, but once you're done with that, I mean, that you've got to move on, and you just have to, and then also projecting into the future. Again, as addicts, I think we love to do that. And I know as far as the trust issue goes, Craig, I had to just earn that trust back just by doing the right thing every day, and eventually the people will come around. If they really truly do support you, they will come around. And if they don't, then they were probably never truly your friends, or, really cared about you to begin with. So, but you have to earn that trust, and just by, like Buddy always says, just do the next right thing. And that's all it comes down to. That's all we really can do. So I see a lot of that in this chapter, just the living in the present. And I have to remind myself of that on a daily basis, several times a day.
Hey, Paul, why do you think in the first section there, practice non-action, work without doing, taste the tasteless, magnify the small, increase the few, reward bitterness with care or with kindness? Why in the world would that be there? That doesn't fit with the rest of this. Talking about little things, taking things when they're small. where does rewarding bitterness with kindness fit in the conversation in the chapter? Gratitude, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, look at what you have. Don't think about the things you don't have.
I think that moving from effort to ease, which is what this is talking about. How do we move from a life of push to a life of ease? It's what this entire chapter, I think, is about. One of the first ideas is, okay, enjoy the plain and simple. Okay? See the simple, simplicity in the complicated. Okay? Take the complicated things and break them down and make them simple. When you see bitterness in your life or other lives, start rewarding that with kindness. It says reward it. We don't think of someone, something bitter rewarding it. We want to punish it. I just realized it was reward. It's not like repay or like, they're bitter, so we got to be kind to them, even though we don't want to be, they're bitter. We're going to reward them for being bitter by being kind to them. Lala?
Yeah, I mean, that goes back to the Buddhist thinking of, these labels of good and bad. Neither one of them is good or bad. I mean, it just is what it is. So if something is bitter, it just causes your reaction to have you do this thing, but not put judgment on it. That's been a big, lesson for me this year, is kind of trying to take yourself out of these labels of this is good and this is bad. They're just kind of benchmarks to teach us something. Because anything that is good is going to come down, and everything that's bad will turn good. It's the polarities. So instead of putting labels on them, reacting to them, judging them, it's just a way of giving us guidelines to a life.
Yes. Thanks, Lala. Kate, you have something?
I think with this rewarding bitterness with care, I like the idea of it. But I think in practice, that's really difficult. I have a person in my life right now that is just being mean. Like, I think she just doesn't like me very much. She's somebody I have to see regularly. And she just doesn't like me. And she does mean stuff. And it's like, that's some bitterness. I don't want to reward it with care, really. But I can see the good idea in it. And then the final translation, when people give you trouble, let it slide. I can see that it would benefit me for sure not to get wrapped up in it, not to get agitated, and then to actually reward it with care. Like, I can see in the grand picture that that's a really good idea. But in actual practice, it's like, that's really difficult to do.
Kate, I think that is one of the actions that bring us to this ease of life. Because when we're kind to someone who's showing us, and that word for bitterness could be hatred, ill treatment, injury, malice, wrong, treat you wrong in any way. It's not a catch on words. It's the idea that when somebody does something to you that is not nice, instead of repaying it with not being nice, you repay it with something kind, something good. So there's no, it's not a word game. It really is about doing something. And in doing so, we've learned that that's the key to letting go of all fear, all anger, everything, is by learning to respond with kindness. And every spiritual practice teaches this. I mean, we learn it in recovery that when we have a resentment, what do? We pray for the people. What, 552, I think it is in the big book.
Mhm.
You know, for 2 weeks, whether you believe the words or not, even if they're empty words, you do it anyway. And that is the idea, that responding with kindness. And I think if we're moving toward what that first phrase is, from effort to ease in life, if we have an area in our life, we can even break it down to your relationship with this lady. I assume it's female.
Hmm.
If you're having effort in that relationship, right? I mean, it takes effort. Anything to do with her is effort.
Right.
You don't want to see her. You don't want nothing to do with her. So every interaction with her is effort. Now, if you want to move to ease in that relationship, you got to start. If there's bitterness or any kind of wrong in that relationship, you've got to respond with kindness. You've got to respond with good. That whole idea of overcoming evil with good, that's not because we can't kill them and get away with it. It's because being kind and good is what actually makes the change in you.
Right. Because I'm always really nice to her, but in my heart, I'm like, Urgh.
You're really not being nice to her.
Right. Right.
You know, your level of consciousness with her is at anger and resentment.
Right. Right.
So if you can pull that level of consciousness up to more of a kind, up to love, or even acceptance, you're getting into a positive area, and that's how she's going to respond. And this is the thing. Once you get there, it doesn't matter how she responds. It's unimportant at that point because you're okay with it. Paul?
Yeah, what Buddy said there, you do it for yourself. You don't do it for her. You do it for yourself, and you will feel a lot of relief, if you can do that, Kate. I know it seems difficult, but you really will feel lighter.
See, Paul, that's where the small bits come in. You can't do it all at once, so you do it in little ways first. You might hold the door for her, or you might just have a kind thought. So you could start with praying the will of God for her, which is neither good nor bad. I mean, I could pray that for Hitler himself. I'm not praying good things. I'm just praying the will of God. And then it can move. Like I have a scale I use for that. It's the will of God, good things, what I want. Then I might do kind acts for the person. And if I really can't get over it, I'll spend money on them. If I spend money on you, it's because I really have a resentment that I can't get over. But see, that's my scale. And that's how I've learned to get over these things. Because it's not about them at all. Tina?
When I thank you for that. When I heard the word reward, and as you brought it up, I didn't realize that before. One thing that came to mind for me was to reward somebody when they treat you badly or with bitterness, because it reminds you of where you could be. They obviously have things going on. They're overthinking. Their ego's in the way. And it's almost like, thank you for reminding me where I don't want to be and for reminding me how to be, because it is a reminder. And I think we learn best when something is stirred in us. Pain is the touchstone of all spiritual growth, and nothing comes from comfort zones. So when somebody does make you uncomfortable, I always try to use those as opportunities to grow. And so when I see the word reward, that's what I think of is thank you for reminding me of where I need to be. And I think if you can look at it from that point of view, sometimes empathy falls in line with that, and you think, oh, wow, that person must be miserable or have something going on inside of them.
Thanks, Tina. Paul?
Yeah, just a kind word can go a long way. You don't have to buy them things, but
Not yet.
yeah, that comes later, right, buddy?
If you can't get over it, because the goal is not doing things for them. The goal is for you to be at ease. So whatever it takes for me to be at ease, I want to do it.
Yeah, a lot of times if I have a problem with somebody, I'll just turn it around. Like I said, I'll give them a kind word, or ask them how their day is going, and all of a sudden, you notice a change in them.
Does that help, Kate?
Yeah, it does help.
Why don't you try that some and let us know what actions you take and how that changes, if that starts changing, if it changes them or if it just changes you.
Okay.
Regardless, it's going to change you.
Yeah.
Which is how we move from practice into practicing non-action, practicing ease. But this rewarding kindness, rewarding bitterness with kindness is a huge part of this. It's not just, okay, I got to do this in small sections. I got to do, it's not this push, effort. It's learning how, for me, it's learning how to get my higher power involved in what's going on. Now, how this relates to recovery for me, I went 6 years in AA and could not stop drinking. I tried everything I possibly could. I did everything I was told. I worked the steps. I did everything. Except, in hindsight, I never learned how to really surrender. I never learned how to turn my will over to the care of God. And it took 6 years for me to learn how to do that and how to let go. And when I let go with my alcohol and quit trying, it started working. So that same quit trying, I think, is this same thing as this non-effort, non-action. It's the same idea. And I think a lot of people and a lot of times in areas of our life, we get stuck over here in the work, and we might put some things in place that help, but we're not free. We're really not at ease, And I think the goal is to be at ease with all these things. Now, the master, going on down, the master never reaches for the great. Now, that word for reach means he never attempts the great. He never strives to be great. It's not that he's not trying to do everything he can do. It's just that his goal is not to be great. So he's great. This whole idea that, it's not the pride, it's not the ego. We're just doing the next kind thing that we can do. And in doing so, we accomplish what we need to accomplish. So it's not that the master's not doing great things. It's just that he's not striving to be this great person. He's just being kind to the people around him. He's just doing what's in front of him to do. Greg?
Yeah, I just noticed a bit. Maybe you just spoke about this. I was just on the phone. Difficult problems are best solved while they're easy. We do a daily inventory, and we make amends there and then if we need to, rather than letting things grow and become resentments and difficulties between people. That just sprung out to me on one of the translations.
Page 84, yes, Paul. And Kate, think about your situation. If you deal with it now, so much easier to deal with it now rather than later. Because it just grows.
Maybe it's not you. Maybe she doesn't have a problem with you. Maybe she has a problem with somebody else and you remind them of them. It could be a transference thing.
But when you dig down in those things, nothing's personal, really.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even things my wife does. I mean, if she was married to anybody, she would respond the same way. It's not me that she's picking on. I mean, when you think about it, I don't know of anyone that's out, spitefully after me. I mean, I'm just happen to be the person there, So if you depersonalize that, it's really easier for me. And that's the thing with working when you do 4-step work and you see what's behind what's going on, and you get it down to these little pieces, you realize a lot of times, oh, that's just a fear of whatever. That's all that is. And you surrender the fear, and the rest of it just goes away. So how many times did you work a 4-step and you thought it was going to be this huge thing, and when it was over, you said, that was not what I thought it was going to be. That wasn't as bad as what I thought it was going to be. And so I wish I had done that before. I'm seeing head shake. So, yeah, heads nod. So, yeah, that's the way it's always been with me. I was always relieved, not regretting. Same kind of thing, How about this idea? And I love this. In the second translation, the last stanza, when she runs into a difficulty, she stops, she gives herself to it, and she doesn't cling to her own comfort. Thus, problems are no problem for her. And the one note on this from Stephen Mitchell on this chapter is, when she runs into a difficulty, he says that means a difficulty is like a letter with her address on it. Like, what the fuck does that mean? A letter with her address on it. And I read this chapter. I have a sponsee, and we go through the Tao Te Ching, and we talked about this chapter a while back. Zaki tried to get him on the podcast. He's so great with this. And I said, what does that mean? And we talked about it. And what he concluded, which made sense to me, was it's just something drawing your attention. So the difficulty we think is this huge thing. No, it's just what's drawing your attention in the moment. So whatever's drawing your attention, you just give yourself to it. You don't project, just like we were talking about being in the now. Because, when you think about it, if all of our problems originate in fear, which I think they do, I've not seen any issue I've had that did not, eventually, if I worked it down, did not get back to either me a fear of losing something I had or not getting something I wanted. It goes back to that if I go far enough down. That's only in the past or the future. I never really have fear in the actual moment. So giving myself to it, not clinging, so nothing's a real problem. Tina?
I think when it resonated with me when you said that they talk about it being addressed to you. I was in a workshop last night, and the speaker kept saying, this was intended for you. Every difficulty that you go through is I can't remember the exact words, I had it a minute ago, intended for you, to teach you something specifically. And so that made sense to me when you said that with your name on it, this exact problem is in your life to teach you something and to show you something. And yesterday I was at the Goodwill, and sometimes space gets tight. And there was a woman who was kind of boxing me out a little bit, or just really in there. And I kind of flared up, and I just thought, I felt intimidated. I'm like, you know what? Just don't move. Don't let her back you down. Just keep doing your thing. And then she just said, $21. I said, what? She said, that's how much this coat is. Isn't that crazy? And I thought, she had no clue what she was doing. I think it was a cultural thing. She had a strong accent, and I perceived it as a threat. But that's just how they are. That's just probably normal, fine behavior. And I was interpreting it as crazy. But it's when our ego gets in the way and we start making all these interpretations that we do damage to ourselves when it didn't even need to be there.
Right, Tina, that's good. How many times have you gotten mail and it was addressed to you and you stressed over it, and then once you opened it, you said, oh, this isn't nothing. Why was I even concerned about that? Or that letter from the IRS, you said, oh, shit, what is this? And you open it before you even get over to the counter, right? You can't even wait until you get out to the car. You say, oh, this is nothing, that kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. But that projecting, you're right, Tina. You're right. That's good. Derek Lynn said that we do not fight fire with fire. Instead, we respond with compassion against which there is no defense. That's what we're talking about. All right. Giving herself to whatever's in front of her, not clinging, because how can you give if you're clinging? You can't. So we respond with kindness. We give. And if we're doing that, Kate, if you're giving kindness for bitterness, when we practice this, there are no issues when we get right-sized about it. Because once, if I'm not carrying a resentment with someone, there is no issue. So I'm at ease in that relationship. So for me, this whole thing is about learning how to do that. And there's practical things we can do, but yet there are things we can do that do not seem practical. It seems practical to, find the simple and the complicated and break things down to small tasks and all of that. But repaying injury with kindness? No way. That's not practical. That's moving over into the ease that only comes from a spiritual solution. Giving myself to whatever's in the moment. I've got a plan for tomorrow. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to make sure this doesn't happen again. I've got, all of these fears start dominating when we're not in the moment. So this is all about, I think, like you guys said, moving it more and more into the moment. Give yourself to problems, let them go. Great acts are made from small deeds. See the simplicity in the complicated. We talked about rewarding bitterness with care. Under promise, over deliver. Look for the simple and the complicated. What can I do in the moment? Accepting where you are without resistance. The greatest difficulty is nothing more than something drawing your attention. Not clinging to what makes you comfortable. Act without doing. This doesn't, what does it mean to give yourself to difficulty? You're not in control. It's not a person, it's a situation. Surrender to the difficulty. It's ego deflation. I was just looking through my notes. That's about all I have. That's a lot. Any other comments, guys? There wasn't a lot that I saw in Wayne Dyer, really. Did you see anything particular you wanted to talk about, Craig?
No, I think he just really reiterates what we've spoke about, just making small things big. I'm not seeing anything that's... I think really Lao Tzu urges you to change the way you look at the 21st century world by doing the following. Look for the simplicity in what you call complicated by seeing that in this moment it's not hard. So again, it's really a case of keeping things in the moment.
Yeah, his do the down. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and also Paul touched on it as well. Stephen Mitchell gave Wayne Dyer his definition of insanity, which was to believe that you need what you don't have is insane. And Wayne Dyer added, believing that you can't be content and happy now because your future appears to you to be difficult is another form of insanity. So appreciation, gratitude for what you have, and just keeping things in the moment.
That's the thing, being the now, is really the big part of this, is breaking this down, because if we're in the past, fear lives in the past and in the future. Fear rarely lives in the now. So if we're in the past and the future, there's no way to be at ease. It's impossible. It's impossible. Any closing comments, guys? Paul, you have something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, what is one of the biggest fears? The fear of the unknown, right? And that's the future. The future is unknown. I mean, we can guess at what's going to happen, but we don't really know.
And learning to live in the now really takes care of that, And
Yeah, if you let go of that fear, boy, that's a big thing right there. So.
Yeah. Craig?
Just takes us back to the old adage, there's 2 days you can't do anything about, yesterday and tomorrow.
Goes back to the same thing, doesn't it? learning to be in the moment, doing the next right thing. That's really where the ease is. Okay, guys, if that's all we have, we'll close for today. Everyone good? All right. Well, y'all have a great week.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. For more information about the SRC, go to theshairpodcast.com. Shair is spelled SHAIR, and look for the Shair Recovery Community link. When you join the SRC, you will be able to participate in this meeting and many more live, plus access to a video library of past meetings and many more benefits for being a part of this growing community. Thanks again for listening, and if you enjoyed this episode, please share this podcast with your friends in recovery.